Welcome back to the interview with Mark Lanier. I say welcome back because this is episode 2 of 2, meaning if you haven't watched the first episode, then we got to catch you up to speed. So I'll slide a link above so you can check that episode out. But if you're ready to watch episode 2, then I'm excited for you. This is a fantastic episode and there's so much insight for you. If you find yourself enjoying this video, then be sure to hit the like button down below, because doing so allows the YouTube algorithm to be a little bit happier. It helps the video rank higher so we can reach more people and ultimately help more people. That's always the goal. But intro aside, let's get back into the interview with Mark Lanier. So Mark, let's maybe transition a little bit. I'm sure there'll be some overlap into your philosophies overall with your legal career. Is that okay?
Sure.
So there's a video series on YouTube, and admittedly, because I'm a nerd, I've watched it like 3 or 4 times, where you're telling war stories to the Harvard students. And at some point, you're talking about your Rubicon case, and you make a joke about how this could be the first case as a solo lawyer for you, resulting in possibly enough money to retire. Obviously, you haven't retired. You've had a very long and successful career. But I found that moment when I was rewatching it recently interesting because personally, for me, there were times where I'm like, I get paid to do this? Like, this is great. And then there are other times where I'm like, man, how much money do I need to just like leave the game and just like leave the stress to where it's no longer self-inflicted? How have you been able to strike that balance to where you've been able to stay in this career for as long as you have?
I've found that I'm in this career almost as a calling. I am a religious person, a person of faith, and I believe that we're given certain talents. I also believe we're given certain opportunities, and that we need to be good stewards of those. I believe there's value in combating evil in this world. I believe there's value in trying to eliminate suffering, or if not eliminated, at least alleviate it to some degree. And I've got a certain number of heartbeats. I don't know how many, but I can live those heartbeats based upon what I want and what I like. Or I can take into account what I want and what I like, but use those heartbeats to make the world a better place, to find a greater degree of justice, to speak for those who are downtrodden, to lift up the widows and the orphans, to try to increase security and safety, to try and do justice. And I think that's a calling. I think it's an opportunity, but I also think it's an obligation for people who have that, the skill set, the resources, and the opportunities to do it. There's a rap singer I represent right now, and he's from the south side of Chicago. And I was sitting down with him. It was the day before Thanksgiving, in fact. He'd come over to the house to talk about his case. And I said to him, I said, you know, you've got the ear of millions of people. And my urging for him was to take his gift of rap and to use it so that it enters into the ears of those devoted fans in ways that make them better people, that make them not bitter about the world, but excited about the world, that make them and transform them into becoming all that they can be. And I said, how many people have the ear of that many who will listen to you and hang and memorize all these words you're saying? And you know, I believe that, but I'm speaking to him as I'm speaking to myself, as I'm speaking to your audience. To whom much is given, much is expected. And if you've got the opportunity to work and experience the arena where we are, Don't disdain it, seize it. Don't do it just for the money. Don't do it just for a retirement that's comfortable. Do it because it's the right thing to do, and you're using your heartbeats to make the world a better place. I mean, that may sound schmaltzy, but I think that's what life's about.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think early on in your career, I think you've said in the past that you were planning on becoming a preacher, but kind of funding it by being a lawyer. What was that
Yeah.
aha moment of like, no, 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 the laws is what I'm going to focus on?
Well, I don't know that I would say it that the law was something I was going to focus on.
Uh huh.
Would I again? I'm going to go back to my example of two headlights on a car.
Okay.
The law would be one of my headlights. So, I was up this morning early, and I spent almost an hour editing on my next book that's coming out. The next one is not one on the law. The next one is one on the minor prophets out of the Old Testament. And I had the luxury of being able to do that in a beautiful office with a great computer with all the resources I could need, because I also have this practice of law that provides for these things. And it's a wonderful opportunity to in essence take both of my legs and both of my feet and let one leg walk and be, and one foot be in the world of faith, while one leg walks and is places its foot in the world of law. And while at first I became a lawyer just to pay the bills, there was, and this gets back to your question, a bit of an aha moment when I realized that the law itself was giving me a chance to do great good in the lives of a number of people, and also giving me a platform from which I could speak about issues of life and faith and things that matter to me with perhaps a degree of credibility that I wouldn't have had otherwise. At least an audience that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And so I'm appreciative of that. And I will say that the two work together. And by that, I mean that am, my faith infuses my practice of law with a great deal of strength. I don't have the worries that a lot of people have because I think it's all in God's hands. I don't have the stress that a lot of people have because I figure God can stress for the both of us. I don't have the um, worries about what the future holds because I know who holds the future, and so it gives strength to my practice of law, even as my practice of law has bled over into my faith and given me a platform for my faith. So it's an interwoven fabric, I guess, not just one or the other.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So, speaking of rap songs, there's a lyric that sticks out to me, which is, how does Batman balance being Bruce Wayne? And I've heard the talk that you gave mentioning how the best lawyers are well-rounded lawyers and have I guess a level of groundedness. So how do you stay grounded in order to better connect with juries?
Well, I think some of that is I don't know. I don't know. I think it's part of life.
Yeah.
I'm married to someone I've known since she was 14 and I was 15.
Wow.
And she's my best friend as well as the romance of my heart. She's also one of the most stable, well-balanced people I know. Um, my friends are what I would call normal people, if there is such a thing. I get asked a lot to hold fundraisers for this, that, and the other event to invite my friends. Well, my friends don't have money to give at fundraisers. I don't, I, you know, I'm not a member of a country club. I don't have, my friends aren't those wealthy scions of the community that fund the world. My friends are just my neighbors, my normal people, the parents of my kids, people I go to church with. Um, the people I've worked with, yeah, but I think being around normal people helps. Um, we didn't raise our kids to think that we or our life was something unusual. And so one of our daughters was in her first year of law school in New York City when she called me one day in the middle of the day. She said, "Dad, you never told me." And I said, "Never told you what?" She said, "You never told me that you're a big deal." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I'm in law school. They're talking about you." And I said, "Okay." She said, "I always thought you were just some lawyer that had a little office down the street. You never told us that people in New York knew you, much less that they talked about your cases." I said, "Well, I mean, okay, sorry, but we wanted our kids to grow up normal." And I
But
grew up very
you weren't,
middle.
Mark, you weren't quietly like, "Oh, now's my moment. Here,
Oh,
dad's finally sticking out."
yeah, no, I mean, you know that day will come where they'll
Hmm.
wake up and realize, oh yeah, we never worried about where the next meal would come from, and dad does travel all over the US for trial, and come to think of it, you know, they Google you or something. But I didn't tell them when I was on TV. I didn't tell them when I was, on the front page of the New York Times or something. That's not. I didn't want to be that dad. I wanted to just be dad who hustles home at the end of who talks Judge Kincaid into letting trial off early on Friday so I can get back for my kid's basketball game. Um, you know, that's what life is, and so the more you can stay in a normal life, the more you can relate. And it's not always easy. And I'm not as successful at it as I'd like, especially as I get older and I get more used to creature comforts or something like that. And so you just do the best you can. I love to try to make it a point to watch TV shows that are out and contemporary that other people are watching. I've got to be careful from two bubbles. I've got to be careful from living in the I'm a successful lawyer bubble, so I can't relate to normal people. But I've also got to be careful about not living in the religious bubble where I lose track of those people that aren't religious and don't, I want so take Game of Thrones, for example. That was pretty gory. That had overt sexuality. That had offensive language. It had a lot of things that, as a Christian, I don't typically want to feed my mind with. But yet, it was such a major part of society that, in a sense, I was able to watch it with that society. Let's understand what people are talking about, what people are thinking, and appreciate the good, even while I watch critically and realize, okay, and maybe too much of it would not be a good thing at all at once, but to listen critically and carefully and watch critically and carefully was great. So I try to stay involved in culture. I do listen to modern music. I can tell you about the new rap that's out. I can tell you about the new songs that are out. I try to read modern literature and the new books. I try to watch the hot shows. So I want to stay plugged in that way as well.
Wow, I love that. I love that. So, I guess the last series of questions, and it may just be one question, honestly, is do you strike a good balance between law firm business owner and lawyer? I had Rick Friedman on the channel, and there were times where he made it he made the distinction of like, look, at some points you have to be a lawyer, and at some points you have to put the business owner hat on.
Yeah, that's frustrating. Ah, how do I best say this? Um, in some ways, what I did is I got someone to help. Um, I've got good business people that I know and trust. And that doesn't mean I don't have to make the decisions. We opened an office in England recently and I've got to make those calls. Am I going to do this or not? And there are some aspects of business that I enjoy. There are some that I hate. I hate firing people. So I just don't do that. I let someone else fire everybody. We don't fire many, but occasionally you got to let someone go. I hate people fighting over stuff, office politics. Other people deal with that. I mean, come on, we're adults. If you can't get along with someone else you're working with, uh, that's come on, grow up. I don't have the patience and the tolerance for that or the desire to deal with it. So I have others deal with that. Um, I obviously I've got to make sure that the money is made. I'm in a sole proprietorship, not a partnership. So I mean, bills come due, and there's one guy who's got to pay for them. Um, but I've got people in place that make that much easier for me to do. It's kind of like at this point, even in the practice of law, I get to do the parts that I like. I can I try the cases. I can take some critical discovery. I can meet with certain clients at certain times, but I've got other people who take care of so much of it that I just do the parts I like. And that's a joy. It didn't always, when I opened the law firm, it was basically me. Uh, and so it hadn't always been that way, but I've worked to that point, and I'm thankful I have, because otherwise you really are at times juggling chainsaws, and it's really hard not to get cut.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Well, Mark, this has been super insightful. I really appreciate it. I know everyone watching is going to really appreciate it. If I can plug in your trial academy real quick, when is the date?
So the date this year is June 13th through the 16th. It's in Houston. We've got seating capacity of about 1,000. We will sell out. I don't make money off of it. This isn't a plea for people to come, so I make money. All of the proceeds go to our Guatemala charity and does a whole lot of good. I've got some really great new stuff this year. I open up the bank vault, and by that I mean I give out my forms, my checklists. I don't hold anything back. I tell people not only how I do things, but why I do things. I'll probably have at least 30 or so people who aren't even lawyers who will come this year because they speak for a living or they communicate for a living. And so I've had a football coach who's coached in the Super Bowl, a pro football coach who's coming back this year because he just finds the communication aspect of it. I get a lot of preachers, I get a lot of teachers and educators who come. I'll have lawyers from all 50 states. Last year we had at least 5 or 6 countries represented, and I
Wow.
know we'll get Canada and Australia and Germany and France already, and England this
Mm-hmm.
year. I already know lawyers from those countries are coming in. So I urge anybody who's interested to come. You get full CLE credit. So you can take care of your whole CLE in
Yeah.
one fell swoop. And it is the everything that I can possibly give for about 24 hours of me speaking.
And I want to make this video evergreen for everyone. So let's just say someone's watching in the future past this event. What's the best way for them to stay in touch to see when the next one's happening?
So Lanier Trial Academy, if you
Okay.
Google it, you'll come up with the answer. And this is 7.0 that will be in 2023, the year we're recording this. But God willing, 2024 will be 8.0. 2025 will be 9.0. I'm always learning new stuff. I'm always trying to heighten my game. I'm still trying cases. And so every year I rewrite the seminar with new stuff and to urge people to continue to grow as they continue to come. So people can Google it. It's usually held in June. Historically, it's always been held in June in Houston, and which is a great time to be indoors in Houston. And
Humidity is no
so,
joke. I grew up in Houston. Oh
oh, I didn't
man.
know that, Jarrett. Yeah, you're right.
It's interesting. Every time I would come from law school down to Houston to visit my family, that difference in humidity, no matter the time of the year, would just punch me straight in the face.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is. But
Well,
anyway.
Mark, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Garrett, a joy and take care. And all your listeners out there, go out and slay some dragons.